time for our session presentation, and the presentation is on Industry 4.0 and beyond. Yes, we are still looking towards that topic, that is Industry 4.0, which is one of the crucial topics at KTX. And we're going to talk about insights on practical solutions, readiness, and the emergence of Industry 5.0. And the speaker of the session is Mr. Derick Jose, the Managing Director of Accenture. And he's going to take us on an insightful journey into the realm of Industry 4.0 and beyond. For all the delegates who come from the startup ecosystem, Mr. Derick Jose would be the person to go to, because he started a startup called Flutura, right? Flutura Decision Sciences and Analytics, and then he sold it to Accenture. How much money he sold it for, I'm not revealing over here, but I can tell you it's a pretty good deal. So all the delegates who are from the startup ecosystem, this is your man. So ladies and gentlemen, get ready to explore the practical solutions, readiness assessments, and the exciting emergence of the Industry 5.0. Let's delve into the transformative landscape of modern industry together. So ladies and gentlemen, once again a big round of applause to the Managing Director of Accenture, Mr. Derick Jose.
Good afternoon to all of you, and thank you for taking time out of your precious schedule to come to this session. What I wanted to talk today, it was a long thing which he said, so I wanted to focus on 3 actionable opportunities which are ahead, and why I think this is the right time to intercept that. It could be from a startup point of view, you want to create a product. It could be from a company point of view, you want to start a services line of business. Or if it could be from an individual who wants to carve out a career pathway. So with that, so just a little bit about the company itself. Sorry. So I was working with in a company called Mindtree, a services company. And along with my 2 co-founders, one of the things we encountered was every time we go to sell to our customers, they looked at us as someone who is coming there to do labor arbitrage. So we did not want them to look at us and say, hey, you're cheaper, but we wanted to say we are faster and better. We're not necessarily cheaper. And we wanted to create a product company, and that's how the journey of Flutura started. And today, we have got critical mass globally across more than 30 countries. Our product is operational in energy sector, the mining sector, refining. Wherever there are big, bad machines out there, we got this going. So a couple of breakthroughs we have done. We worked on for Saudi Aramco, where we are preventing downtime upstream itself. So we are monitoring the health of more than 350 rotating assets and predicting failures before they occur itself. So that they can prevent a loss of production. We are working with Technique FMC. It's one of the largest subsea equipment manufacturers in the world. So for Technique, what we do is we do diagnostics and prognostics of all their complex equipments which operate under the water. The last one which I wanted to quickly touch upon is a refinery. Derick, we have built a refinery of the future. So essentially what we have done is very revolutionary in the sense that we have built a twin of the digital refinery itself, and we have built a set of autonomous agents. So today what happens is when you have a refinery, people physically have to go and inspect each of those subsystems and equipments. What we have done is we created a digital twin of the refinery itself, and we got a bunch of autonomous agents which will go and inspect for anomalies and recommend next best actions for it, and then passes it on to a human if they think it is an unsolvable problem. So that's essentially what we have done. So less about me, I want to talk about what the opportunity is there for all of you. So if you look at the journey, Industry 4.0 is a very, I think, fancy term, so I would like to keep it real. In the sense, a very simplistic way of looking at it is to look at the journey of a car, right? If you look at the car, stage 1 of the car, it was completely an electromechanical asset. There was no digital in it, right? There was no sensors in it. That was the first stage of evolution of the car itself. Took a couple of years. It went to second step where there was what we call rudimentary edge intelligence. So if you didn't wear your seat belt, it will start alarming. Fuel is low, it will start alarming. So it had some very basic rudimentary edge intelligence. That was the second stage of the growth. The third stage of the growth is it started having a little bit of advanced edge intelligence. So today, if you want to parallel park, there is augmented intelligence of the vision also, which helps you do a parallel park very effectively. Fourth stage, you started having over-the-air updates and over-the-air updates of events which go to it. For example, if there is a stolen vehicle, there is a stolen vehicle tracking system on that, so you'll be able to locate the car. So there are a lot of what we call eyes on the car, and you are able to do diagnostics and prognostics of the car remotely. So today, if you go to see, there are certain car OEMs today for $25 a month. If you're stuck somewhere before car engine has gone down, they'll log into your engine itself remotely and run the diagnostics and tell you what's wrong and send a technician. So it's very useful for people who are old, driving in snow and they get stuck. There's the safety of this $25 per month service. It's an additional business model they charge. It's diagnostics and insights as a service, right? The fifth stage is, it's something which is taking on slowly, is where they're collecting the driver behavior data, right? How many times you brake, how well you negotiate a curve, right? And how many times you overspeed it, okay? So all those micro events are collected by the car and they come up with a driver behavior score. So what can you do with your driver behavior score? You can essentially work with an insurance provider and you can use your driver behavior score. It's almost like your credit score, right? You'll be able to negotiate a differentiated pricing for your insurance if you're willing to exchange that data for you. So Ford has started a program, and increasingly I think you'll be able to barter your information for a well-negotiated insurance price. If you're a good driver, you'll get a good deal from the thing. So it's the next level of business model where the data is being converted and new business model is emerging. And the last stage is autonomous vehicles. So today we have taxis in San Francisco, which are completely autonomous. The laws allow it. So the legal system is caught up with the technology also, and you have autonomous vehicles. So, but the most interesting thing is it's a journey which started almost 100 years back. And if you look at the journey of Industry 5.0 in other areas, right? Energy, pharma, defense, mining, much more massive sectors. We are at stage 1 and 2. So there is a 90% headroom for many companies to evolve and build services out of it, out of India also. Okay. So with that, I wanted to focus on that context. I wanted to focus on 3 immediate opportunities, probably in the next 2 years, which are extremely hot the way I see it based on market demand. One is responsible AI. I'll dive a little bit into it. The second is what we call as forensics AI, primarily in the power sector. And the third is industrial AI itself. Couple of examples, right? A couple of stories to bring this alive. So there was this instance where, so if you want a kidney in the US, a human doesn't decide it. An algorithm decides for you. So it's a two-sided marketplace where there are donors who are willing to contribute to the kidney and the recipients. And who gets the kidney is decided by an algorithm. And one of the things they found out was the algorithm was biased against blacks. So what it effectively meant was there were a lot of cases where a worthy black recipient did not get a kidney and unfortunately had to, it led to mortality. So it was one of the classic cases where they figured out it was actually doing harm in the medical space. The second is in policing. So you have an AI algorithm essentially scoring individuals. So if you look at this example, on the left-hand side, there is a white gentleman whose score is very low. On the right side is a person who's black whose score is very high, 6. But if you look at their offenses, Robert has only committed 1 petty theft, whereas James has actually done domestic violence, he's grand theft. So, but the algorithm has wrongly scored them. And this is real, okay? And multiple instances of this. Again, if you took the case of Dylan and Bernard. Dylan had a score of 3, Bernard had a score of 10. And if you look at the crimes they have actually committed, Bernard was resisting arrest, but his score is 10. Dylan has burglary and 3 drug possession, his score is very 3. So if you look at the second instance also, here is an example of what I would call a police AI algorithm, essentially scoring people the wrong way, and there is bias built into that algorithm. And the third example, let's come to the Indian context. So if you look at the last 1 month, I think Urban Clap, right, which allowed women to offer beauty services. And one of the choices they had was decide which demand request to service. So for example, in this case, if a lady would decide if it's under 7 kilometers and only if the ticket size is up, absolutely at least 2,000 rupees, it's profitable to go and service that customer. Now, Urban Clap introduced this small tweak called auto acceptance. It's like an Uber car saying, I can't decide whom to go to, you have to mandatorily serve it. And overnight, most of them started running under losses, primarily because they had to go long distances, they didn't have the product, and overall the quality of service deteriorated. So here was a case, it's not accidental, it was by design, because I think they had to raise their balance sheet numbers, and they made the small tweak to the algorithm, but unfortunately it resulted in harm for the one side of the marketplace. And this probably would be the last example. So it just happened just like 2 days back, right? So Google Gemini was released, and one of the things it did was it labeled the Prime Minister as a fascist, okay? And it caused a lot of commotion in the marketplace. And there were multiple instances this happened, and finally, in the last 2-3 days, Google's valuation dropped by $90 billion. So the point I'm trying to make is, a lot of algorithms are running wild. It can cause probably 5 types of vulnerabilities to a company. It could be legal vulnerabilities, financial vulnerability, reputational liability itself. Customers will churn away from you if your algorithms are not behaving properly, especially in healthcare and education. And last but not least, operational liabilities. And all of this has to be addressed. So in today's world, what we see is we are hostages to visible hostages to invisible algorithms. So a lot of algorithms around us. I would equate it to the pharma industry. Now, what happens if a pharma company could introduce a drug into the market without testing it? It could cause a lot of harm. So algorithms have to be treated in such a way where it needs to undergo reliable testing before it is launched into the marketplace, because as we saw in multiple examples, there is a potential for it to really cause adversity. And it's coming, so people have started passing laws globally. India is going to pass a law in June. EU has already released what is called as the EU AI Act, and regulation always brings about services opportunities and product opportunities for startups. So from that perspective, so if you unpack the EU AI Act itself, it says you have to classify high-risk systems. High-risk systems are any AI systems which are touching children, for example, touching elections, for example, healthcare, for example. These are all labeled as high-risk AI systems. And you have to make sure somebody external does an assessment of the algorithm. Okay, it's very mandatory. Today, if you look at it, Instagram can throw very wrong recommendations to underage children in the Europe. Okay, and there is no law which they are liable to. But after June, they'll be really liable for any wrong recommendations to underage children. So this responsible AI, as we call it, what is it exactly? So just to simplify it, there are 7 components to it. Is there bias in the data? It could be age, gender. You just have to answer a simple question. In the algorithm, does it have bias? Yes or no? The second question you have to answer is the algorithm explainable? Is it a white box or a black box? Many of the algorithms are black boxes and there's a challenge around it. But I think there'll be pressure on them to explain themselves, especially when dealing with very high-risk systems like healthcare. Third dimension is data quality itself, right? What is the quality of the data which has gone into that algorithm is extremely important. So it's like blood. If you do a blood test, I mean, on blood quality blood, the diagnosis will come out harmful. So it's very important to understand what is the quality of the data which has gone, what are missing values, wrong values, so you can give it a score. And that's a huge opportunity. And finally, you'll have to give traceability. How did this data is a pipeline, right? It's like a pipeline. You'll have to find out what happened to each data element which went into the scoring model before it decided a next best action for a human. And the other question which most people do not answer is how reliable is the answer or the decision taken. So if you look at ChatGPT, it doesn't tell you how reliable is my answer. It doesn't score itself and tell you. It's a black box to you. You have to trust it. So I think reliability of the algorithms will become an extremely important dimension for external assessments. And that opens up a lot of doors for our services and product companies. And last but not the least, the EU AI Act mandates that there should be a human in the loop for high-risk systems. When you think the answer is unreliable, you have to mandatorily put a human oversight to it. And then seventh element is data security. So if you look at it, these are the 7 dimensions. And is there bias? Is it explainable? Is it secure? Is the data hygienic enough? Right? Is it traceable? Is the algorithm's recommendation reliable? And is there human override on the system? For example, many of the systems do not have human override. Now, that's the first opportunity which we talked about, where you can create services companies, product companies, and I think it could be RAI could be introduced as an elective and MBA curriculums also, because I think the supply-demand gap is going to be huge. And all the countries are going to need RIA professionals. And outside of China, I think we'll probably have the largest critical mass of people to start off with from a services business model point of view. The second opportunity is in digital twin monitoring. So today, increasingly, everybody's what I call creating a digital Xerox of the things, right? You can create a digital twin of the human body itself and do remote monitoring. So there are a lot of companies in Bangalore which are doing remote monitoring of patients in US hospitals sitting out of a command center in Bangalore, monitoring the health, pulse, vitals, etc. And we ourselves were monitoring the health of certain drilling operations in Houston sitting out of Jayanagar in Bangalore. Like as the drill bit is going to the Earth's crust, we are able to monitor what kind of inefficiencies are crossing it, and we'll alert somebody in Houston or Norway to take a next best action to it. So monitoring as a service on digital twin is one huge opportunity. The third opportunity I wanted to talk about is, so if you look at today's world, which we live in, right, the first attack in a war is mostly digital, which is below the radar, right? Nobody detects it. It's not a physical attack. And 2 examples of that was the black energy attack in Ukraine. I think more than 2 lakh people were left freezing. There was also a follow-up attack in Kiev, where about 7 lakh people had to face sub-zero temperatures because Russia attacked the grid. So power grid attacks are becoming weaponized, and that also opens up opportunities. For example, in India itself, I think we had a lot of instances where in the border areas, I think there has been intrusion into the power grid itself. And government was willing to spend up to 500 crores on it, and that number will keep increasing as the years go by. It's also an opportunity to create grid-related projects. So the first opportunity is, so there are a lot of pieces of software which can keep an eye on your grid infrastructure and respond to a threat. But what is missing is attacks are inevitable. There'll always be a leakage. Somebody will get through your system. And once an attack happens, how do you do forensics of that? So today, if a crime happens, you have a criminal forensic team which collects DNA, which collects blood, which collects splatter, saliva, all of that stuff, and go back and do a root cause analysis to trace out where the root source of the crime activity came from. But in the industrial world, the tools are just not available. And no, there is a process by which you need to go through once an attack happens to the grid infrastructure itself. Forensically secure the data, secure the people, all of that stuff. And one of the most interesting things, at least I discovered, was that there's a company out of Calicut which was actually doing it. So Indian Institute of Science and Sesame Tech had created a product called Grid Forensics, Grid Watch, Grid Forensics, which will essentially collect data from SCADA systems, smart meters, and do a follow-up analysis of anomaly sequences and stuff like that. So the opportunity space in this is huge. You can set up command centers. You can set up command centers which continuously monitor it in real time, or once an attack happens, you can do a forensic analysis of that. And a lot of intellectual property has already been created. I was surprised. I'm sure there are hundreds of other startups in Kerala itself which are doing silent, deep work, and I thought I'll highlight that. No, in a nutshell, what I wanted to say is these are very ripe opportunities, immediate, all for students, startups, or services companies, but it needs an ecosystem to blossom, okay? So if you look at it, I would call it the seed, the soil, and the sun. Like the seed is the startup or the services company which has an idea, very passionate about it, but seed in itself will not blossom. So it needs the right soil, an ecosystem, and finally, last but not the least, it needs capital, money. Money has to flow in. Either it should be funded by the customer, it should be funded by a venture capitalist. So if you look at all the building blocks out here, I could see there are a lot of startups out here. I met a couple of them doing interesting work in not only in grid security, cyber security, in UI, all of that. Very silent folks, but I think they have to tell the best version of the story to the world. And second level, you have the IIMs, you have the NITs and the IIMs out here, which can provide the right nurturing. If you take reliability AI, so responsible AI, right? I think with this, the NIT team can help you create the digital tools required. You can get support from the IIMs to structure a consulting offering out of it, and then you can hit the global marketplace. The last layer is the risk capital. So there are associations, North Malabar Malayali Association in California. You have Malabar Angels, and of course you have a lot of ecosystem in the Middle East also, who can get you access to customers or the venture capital which is required to take a bold move and fund these things. And I think it's time to reimagine the Malabar region. I think there's a lot of bubbling energy out here, but the energy has to get channelized. And these are three specific areas where I think the energy can be channelized and monetized. Also, there's business opportunity also there. So one is responsible AI, second is forensic AI, the third is digital twin monitoring either in the healthcare space or in the industrial space. Thank you for your time.